Keith, you good? Good. All right, I'll call to order this special board meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees, February 25th, 2019. The only items on the agenda are our budget working session and an executive session to discuss various personnel matters, unless anyone has any changes to the agenda that they would like to
Did
make.
have one maybe. The LED lights for the building are just under $792.92. Do we need a motion or referendum to get you to sign the matter?
Not for 100,000.
Then if not, I got nothing.
I got a $7,000 pump I need for Canada.
Okay, we'll add that, let's do
I think
that
it's 7,000.
now. We'll add sewer pump. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, if not, then
Thank you.
Deb, sewer pump.
What happens when you add things on the fly?
Okay, so, the pump on the Winders the Winders property needs to be replaced. I got a quote quite some time ago. They went out, I told them I needed 3 quotes. They couldn't get other quotes because everybody buys it from the same place. And it wasn't that unreasonable. I think I even have authority without you guys, but I was gonna bring it up. Let me find out what it is first. I sent it to you today, didn't I, Tim?
I didn't get any email from you today.
Winders Street. I'm looking, I know I sent it today, or resent it today. Can you put me down later, when you find it?
So we will circle back to the sewer pump later. Which takes us to item number 3 on the agenda, which is our budget working session. And we're going to discuss,
I do it, I found it.
okay, we'll put that on hold and come back to sewer pump.
Okay, sorry, 40. It is $4,997.50. It's a Flake model, it's a submersible pump. You don't need to have the rest of it, that's how much it is, it's $4,997.50. That is the price of the part, it is not the price of the installation. I don't have the install part. It's certainly not gonna be that much.
We're taking this out of a reserve line.
Just spend the money.
Can it wait there?
No, it's a improvement, please.
But we can't wait the 30 days. So you have a budget line we can take it out of and then reimburse from the.
Apparently, I got a lot of encumbered.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion that we spend up to, what's the number you want?
Let's make it 6,500 to include the install. Okay,
Then I would entertain a motion to, subject to permissive referendum, spend $6,500 out of the sewer capital improvement reserve fund. Purchase and installation of a new sewer pump.
So we are taking it from a reserve?
Eventually.
yeah, I can order it and then we'll get it out of the reserve when the bill comes in.
Not for 30 days.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It'll take them that long to get us the pump.
Okay.
But I need to get it ordered, that's what my point is.
So if someone wants to make that motion,
So moved.
motion, do we have a second?
Well, second.
Any discussion? Questions, comments, contributions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, back to budget working session. We have, we'll be discussing several departments, starting with farmer's market. which I believe the two of you are here to talk about.
I guess that's me.
Take it away.
Where do you want me? This
Right
is-
there.
That was perfect.
I'll just start at the top, the usual of the budget, or the proposed budget. We've increased the pavilion and tent vendor fees by $10 each. Pavilion fees are $100 for the season, and each tent space is $85. Vendor fees are $20 a day. We are seeing more vendors this year. Last year, there were 33 vendors, and for 2017 season, there were 46. We are hoping to increase vendor attendance. We plan on selling farmers market stickers, tote bags, and T-shirts to help offset some of the cost. I know that we can't make a profit on them, but just to help offset some of the cost. We'll be applying for the Tompkins County Tourism Grant for tourism and marketing. Tourism, marketing, and advertising. This grant will be spent it needs to be spent out of the county advertising in hopes of bringing people into the county. This is a dollar for dollar grant, and we'll be applying for $1,450. Along with paid advertising, the board has also agreed that all of the board members will be sharing as much as possible on social media to help to get more customers to the farmers market. The expenses for the ASCAP, the Trumansburg Chamber fee, the electricity, and the insurance are approximately $975. Again, this is supplies. We've allotted $250 for supplies. And we are hoping, let's see here, the website costs will be approximately $216 for the year. Advertising, the art part of advertising, we've allocated $500. We do hope to find someone to donate some of their services for the actual production of the art part, and some of the board members are capable of producing some of it, and we will do that as well. Printing services, we would like to print 2,500 brochures and distribute them both in county and out of county. Last year, let's see here, we're local business. Local business is kind of self-explanatory. I went, the Atlas score sheet last year was $375, so that's why that is $550. We hope to do some local advertising, maybe some table tents in restaurants, local restaurants. Last year, there were fewer vendors and less vendors and a slightly different mix than prior years. And we've heard some grumbling from both customers and a few vendors. So the next line item, the media advertisement for $2,890. We plan to advertise in Edible Finger Lakes, some combination of Tompkins Weekly, the Seneca Shopper, Ithaca Times. There's an Upstate magazine that's found in rest stops, which we can use for the grant money. We hope to advertise on the Eagle Wine Trail website and possibly the Seneca Wine Trail website. Possibly to use Tompkins coupon books and in the grassroots publication and on Facebook. And half of that should be used for the grant money if we get it.
Okay.
I know at some point we talked about possibly seeing if Tompkins Weekly can also do an article, which is kind of like free advertising.
That tourism grant, Jill, sorry to interrupt, that tourism grant was $1,450?
Yes. And I put it up top with a revenue line. I don't know if I said that or not.
Yeah, no,
There's
it's
a
fine.
top.
We just had it as $1,950 in our budget sheet. We just wanna make sure
Okay.
We have the right number.
That was, yeah, it was $1,450 and $500 for promo items was the other $500 you had in there.
Okay.
For
That promo item offset though, where is that coming from?
There should, the promo, so down under media expenses, that's the next line item after the media advertisement. So
No, I understand that, but on the revenue side, you have 500 as promo items. Is that coming from an outside source? or is
that's coming from selling some of the items at the market.
it- No, because it's not great.
I can put in your budget line.
Sorry, we're just trying to figure out where to stick that 500.
That's okay, just let me know when to proceed.
For the farmer's market promo.
Okay.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay, so then the next is the cost of those promo items, roughly $860, and signs for around town and hopefully other places as well as in town and in Ithaca on the way here from Ithaca to here. Market manager averages about 260 hours per season. That's including preseason and postseason. The stipend for the market manager last year was $1,875. If you divide that into 260 hours, it comes to about $7.21 an hour before taxes. Due to that number, we're asking for a raise for the stipend for the 2019-20 budget to $4,000, which comes to approximately $15.38 prior to taxes. We've got the difference in the budget is approximately $4,861, which is the approximate of the ask that we're asking from the village. Market insurance, I wasn't sure where that needed to go. That's why it's hanging down.
I have that already.
Sure,
in there.
okay, so. And then the music program tends to be a sponsorship in, money out. I know last year a few musicians did not invoice the village, so I'm not sure, there should be a few $100s. I don't know if that's left or if it's just put into the rest of the market fund.
Okay. You got the 10, 7, 11 in there.
I'm sorry.
You got the 10, 7, 11.
Yep. I will.
Any questions from the board for Jill or Don?
What is our usual contribution? I remember being a round number, like 5,000, 4,000, or 5,000.
We rounded it up to 5, it's usually 4 and change, 4 or 8 something. We rounded it up to 5.
Most recent one was 580 was the budget line, or 5,500. 1,500.
But I think 800 of that was supposed to be grant money.
That's right.
Last year.
So, if I could frame this for you, I think very readily. Traditionally, the village has said, okay, we're gonna give you X amount to run this market, because that's roughly in line with what you thought it should be and whatever, after we went back and forth. That number was always around $4,500 or $5,000 in that neighborhood. It was $5,800 last year because of the anticipated revenues from the grant, which actually turned out to be more than the $800. It turned out to be $1,225 for the grant. Of that money that was allocated by the village, there was kind of an expectation that they were going to get a fair bit of that back, knowing that it wasn't going to all come back. And so it came back through vendor fees, and that was basically it, through vendor fees. So there was kind of an expectation that the village was subsidizing the market to, a degree that worked out to be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 roughly on a pretty regular basis. And but because of the recognition that getting somebody to be in the market manager position and do the kind of job that is necessary in that position really needed more money, we came, and you guys have already had a discussion about this, but the idea was to raise that to a number that at least was reasonable to some degree. It's still low, but it's at least reasonable. And that position has always been kind of a quasi-volunteer / paid, an honorary almost kind of thing. So there's that. So part of the difference, that 4,861 difference between the anticipated revenues and the proposed expenses, is 2,100 of it is for the raising of the market manager from 1875. So that then takes it down to roughly $2,700 that we're asking the village to subsidize, which is a number that is a bit above the historical element of things. The reason we're asking for this is because the market needs help. For it to become vibrant and make it again, it needs to have more vendors, and it needs to stabilize the ones that are there who are not making enough money. So many of them are thinking of not returning. That's actually happened with some from previous years. And we also recognize we need to get more people there. So the way to do it is we've basically been going out and recruiting more vendors and telling them that we're basically, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to try to bring more people in. And so we anticipate we'll have more people. We anticipate we'll have more vendors, but it's going to take some money to bring those more people there to make this market have some longevity and be a vibrant entity in the village again. So we're basically saying this is a way to help Trumansburg. It's one of Trumansburg's assets, and we'd like it to thrive. We're asking the board to see it in that manner and recognize that this is perhaps a small investment that to have this kind of asset in the community.
A couple questions I have on the expenses in your sheet. If the farmer's market is technically a village entity, why are we paying a separate chamber fee? Because the village is already a chamber member.
I do not know. This is my second year on the board.
Because they wanted a separate name in whatever publications. That was what I was told by Avi and Elaine.
They want to
They wanted like a separate line. If the chamber did any kind of advertising and listed its members, they wanted to be listed separately from the village.
Could we get them to list us without having to pay that extra?
I don't think it would be the village and Trumansburg included.
Right. I mean, in some respects, it would be like, it would be like having DPW pay a chamber membership.
Exactly.
Right.
It doesn't make
But
sense.
it's a different thing because they're not accountants, But
The next question I had in there was the Squarespace website. Same idea. If the village owns the website, the domains, etc., why would there be a separate? Why would we be essentially budgeting for that twice?
I don't know that answer because I don't know the technology, and Ben, you might have a sense, having talked to David about that, but.
And I think prior to recently, it wasn't in the villages.
Someone was paying for it out of their own pocket, and the village was not reimbursing them.
I
So
assume somebody had to pay for that. I just figured it would be us paying for it, but if it's not, that's.
I think that's a question for us. I don't know where that would involve.
This is the part I just did, I mean, the stuff I just did.
Some of it.
Is that paid because, I mean, is
Right,
that,
but like, where would that come out of the village, like, office line, or where would that?
But how we pay for our website?
Right, so if we have a website that the village is owning and paying for to promote the market, should that
It
come
comes out
out
of
of?
building and office.
It's the IT contractual line. We don't break out.
Right.
Okay,
TRPD
so
has
that's-
their own URL.
Right,
We don't
right,
break those out.
okay, so then I think it would make sense to probably take it out of this.
Fire company has their own because they are. independent.
Sure, right. But up until the point that you're your own entity, then it probably doesn't make sense to be in this budget.
So they're just gonna have a drop down on our website.
Well,
No, it's just the host, whatever they have, it's still a village owned entity.
We can do another website. I don't understand all
yeah,
this, so.
so I think that the police one is probably a good example, like where does the police budget cover their own website, or do we just cover it out of our IT?
Well, they used to, because they had a whole different one, but
We folded everything in the building
Right.
IT.
Okay.
so does that mean you basically, the current market website would stay as it is, but it would be in essence under the, I mean, how would that be changed?
It's simply a matter of who is the owner of record and who's paying for it. So if the owner of record is the village, and we already have a line for IT,
Mhm.
which includes all of our websites, why are we building it in separately into a different line item to pay for it twice?
So would it have to be paid for again, or just, in other words, you pay Squarespace $200 or whatever, and you can
Right,
put
but
as
it
many
doesn't have
websites on
to
it
be,
as
it
you
doesn't
want?
have to be budgeted separately in the farmer's market budget. If the
So I
village
see.
already owns it and is already paying for it.
Okay,
Put it in there.
very good, who will remove it?
Yeah, and we're open to, I'm open to saving any money whenever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far out into the weeds on a Monday night about the value or lack thereof in things like stickers and tote bags and t-shirts. I
Yes.
guess it depends on.
No, I get it. We went back and forth on a lot of things, and I think at this point, we are concerned about the market.
I had a bunch of Main Street t-shirts upstairs that would go to prove the point that you'll spend money and not get it back.
So, we're also open to, we gotta have that.
There was also, Julie was, so Julie was in the office, I think last week, was it?
Who?
Julia.
Oh,
Isn't that her name?
yeah,
Julia.
Julia, yeah.
It was also talking about things like paying for Facebook boosting and that kind of stuff. That's
So let's send the ads. So I think it'd be simple enough for us if we make the villages, our contractual line, what here is 10,711, just make it 10,500.
Okay. Okay, got it.
See what it looks like after this year, see what actually gets spent.
I mean, the whole intent behind the market was to make them self-sufficient, right? We weren't supposed to be subsidizing it over any number of years.
Sure.
Was that the
I'm
idea?
not-
I mean,
I'm not
no,
trying to.
was that the idea?
That was the hope.
Being new to the board, I don't know all of the history.
So the farm,
So, can I address that, Debbie?
Harvey?
Can I address that? One of the, and I agree, that was a hope, okay? But when I think of the amount of people that I have heard that have come to Trumansburg because they had a farmer's market, or they think of Trumansburg and they say, yeah, they have this great farmer's market and things like that. The small amount of money that we as a group of people, the village, have paid to have that kind of vitality in the village, I think is remarkable. I think it's one of the best advertising dollars we do as a village. So even though I'm with you, I'd love to see things carry their own weight. And I actually hope that we can get that place, because if the market doesn't turn around, there isn't gonna be a market. So I'm hoping though that we can do that turnaround, we can make it a vital thing that does carry its own weight. But even if we don't, and we as a village have this vital, neat thing in the middle of it that happens during the summer, I think it's a small price to pay to increase what this village is. So
I wasn't
that's all
disputing that, I was just trying to put the baseline down of where we
Right.
started and where we
Yeah.
seem to be growing.
And I understand, yeah.
Because it's been 10 years.
12. So it was 2007 that the village folded the farmer's market back into itself. Primarily, actually at the time, primarily because some of the grants that you apply for cannot be applied for if you're not part of the municipality. So, yeah, I think it is important to continue to hold out hope that it can be self-sustaining and try to figure out a way to make that happen. I mean, as far as non-sustaining village departments go, this one is one of the smallest. But on the other hand, if it comes down to losing the farmer's market or losing the ambulance, probably we're going to lose the farmer's market first. So let's do what we can to not let that happen.
Are vendors seeing less revenue?
I've been a vendor there 3 years in a young business. And from year 1 to year 2, there was an increase. And last year was a noticeable decrease. And there was a noticeable drop off in attendance. Now admittedly, we had worse weather last year.
I was gonna say it rained every Wednesday.
No, I mean,
Yes.
that was a big part of some things.
Every Wednesday it rained.
And part of things with these smaller markets, they have to have their own momentum, and so you lose momentum sometimes with weather. So I don't discount that portion of, what that contribution to the problems last year. But truly, even the year before, I had vendors right next to me who didn't come back because they didn't make enough sales. To them, it wasn't worth their while. Frankly, it isn't worth our while, except that I like doing it. And I just look at it as a way to be, it's a community kind of thing. And other vendors at the market do it for that reason, but there are others that do it in hopes that they're gonna make enough money to make it worth their while, and a few do. We hope that's gonna change, and there's gonna be a lot more that do, but, that's a long answer to your question, so.
Is there any way to gauge in terms of people showing up? That doesn't seem like it's
I'm
totally
sorry, say
trackable.
again?
The ability to just track how many people are showing up, because a lot of people might show up and not spend any money, so it's hard to track. I don't know if you have a
We've
sense.
had Avi, when he was the manager, kept a fairly decent head count, and he would count 4 times during the market.
And I think we have that historical data. We do not have any data for last year.
Do you have it by vendor?
Pardon? We
Do
also
you
have,
have the income by vendor? Because I
vendors
think
are not,
part of it is the mix.
Right.
So I know it's not my place, but I go there and there's never anything I need. I want lettuce, I want herbs, I want tomatoes. That's what I'm going to a farmer market for. Not pottery, which I don't need anymore,
That
or
was
bath salts that I
big
don't need
complaint last
anymore,
year.
or
so what you're right, Debbie, that's one of the things we're trying to do. We actually already have a couple, produce people, and the hope is that we're going to have a much greater mix and a larger supply of that kind of staples, as it were. Because that's a lot of people, it's like, why go there, kind of things. And for some people, there's a lot of good about the market, it's a wonderful little place for kids, and it's life, and it's nice.
stuff that's very fighting.
But it's in danger, it's one of those things that the vendors aren't gonna come because they don't make enough money, then people aren't gonna bother coming because there's nothing there, and then just keeps snowballing down.
And apparently, it's also a national trend that markets are, the attendance, it's decreasing.
That's gonna be my next question. They're in the general area, are similar markets seeing the same trends?
I do not know, I just know of the historical data that I think Cornell did a big study about it, nationwide, it's on that.
It's also local, I don't know about if the local rural markets are all suffering the same kind of thing. And again, I think when we started kind of in the early part of the 2000s, many of them restarted or whatever, grocery stores didn't offer local produce at that time very much. And very little places offered organic produce. And CSAs were just starting. And CSAs have taken over a lot of what markets used to do, and including now becoming a social hub. CSAs, which just started having vegetables, now have breads and eggs and meat and, everything else. It's just not a bad thing. It's, the nature of it. But we have this kind of place where people that grow things, hopefully, or, grow or make things, hopefully we have a market, an agora, as it were. And it would be nice if we can keep, that working, but we gotta do some work. And the board, frankly, we're working hard. And there's a lot of us doing a lot of things, and I hope it makes a difference. We don't know. But we're asking the village for, some tools to do that.
Questions for Jill or Bill?
So I'm guessing the pavilion space is buying them for the whole season. That number's probably going down, right? Less people are committing to a whole season at a time. for better spaces.
Actually, the pavilion spaces have been, the requests for pavilion spaces for an entire season have been consistently full. And we anticipate that will happen again. One of the things the market did last year was there are people that have said, well, I'd love to go to the market, but I can't afford to have somebody there, or I can't be there, kind of thing. So we set up this thing where basically, if you can find somebody that will handle your goods, kind of thing, you can pay a membership fee. So, and that's where the wineries, there were a couple wineries sharing a booth, and they each paid their fee. So potentially we can increase some of the revenues, that way. But the main thing is we want to increase the mix, and if you can do what we can to make it so that it's attractive to the members, which frankly, $100 for a season is very cheap. Then, hopefully we get enough of that, and we let people know it's there, then they start coming in. We if we're able to make the kind of inroads this year that we hope, next year, one of the things we're going to be really moving towards is programming and trying to make it so that each week, aside from the music, there are some exciting things going on. Really trying to make it so that there are other reasons to come to market. But anyhow, you guys have a time budget as well. So.
Any other questions for Jill? I'm comfortable with these numbers after we've gone through them. Unless there's anything that stands out that you want to address.
I wrote it quite a few times as well. Done.
Well, thank you both.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
Tom, I like your numbers. I think we're all set. Thanks for coming.
Have a great day.
Oh, come on, you gotta fight about something.
I'm sure we can find something to fight about. Maybe budget isn't it.
Do I have to look that deep?
If you're happy with all that, my only concern is the hiring process for a zoning officer, proposed new zoning officer.
What I tell you?
So two things. First, does anyone, Vicki and I were just chatting rudely in front of Jill, that, hey Dustin, Tom has requested that rather than paying separately for a cell phone for him to carry separately from his own, they reimburse him $25 a month towards his cell phone bill, which actually would reduce the contractual line by a couple $100. I think that makes sense. I think that's probably the way we should be moving in general for any department head that needs to have a cell phone anyway. Anything else come out of that contractual line?
Does Tom understand that that reimbursement is income and he will pay income tax on it?
Oh, man, I think you made it so clear.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure because I don't want you yelling at me when your first check comes and you realize that you got tax.
I might forget and start yelling.
Oh, but I'll remind you.
Yeah. Everybody else walks in the
When
house.
he yells and stomps, it's fun. When he throws himself on the floor.
What's the equipment that you need this year?
Didn't really.
Just,
I don't have
just in
any
case.
specific things. I figure it's important to leave some room there just in case something comes up.
Any budget related questions for Tom? As
One
far
of the things I have been looking at to spend money on is, I can buy searchable functions for the code books. They're about 2,500 pages worth, and I've memorized some of it and I can find it pretty quickly. Other stuff, I have to walk through the, it's online at least. But if you pay, I think it's $600 for 3 years, you can have search function, and you can't even copy and paste out the code books. It's protected some way. I have a snipping tool where I can do that. But
Let's be careful what we admit to here. Illegal.
Still copyright.
because one of my supervisors at Department of State told me that's how I should do it. But
Well, this is the state of New York. You're gonna wanna follow that.
it
Albany wouldn't get anything wrong.
No, of course not.
probably not. But I think I'm trying to communicate with the folks that do this to see if I can qualify with the town and the village as a single entity. So it's not a double fee, because I would have a hard time justifying it for a half-time
Would that
job.
be usable by anybody, not just you, once we purchased it?
This is part of what I'm trying to find. I don't think I can pay the fee and open it up to the rest of the world. Maybe village employees, maybe town and village, but I'm not.
But as
sure.
long as you could pass it back, like you could log in from anywhere,
Mhm.
we wouldn't necessarily need access for, you need access for both of your jobs. So the town.
But it might also,
because we're going.
But I was thinking, it might be convenient for us in the middle of some type of a dispute, if we could just search it and have it in front of us.
If you had a good question, maybe I could.
But I don't have a clue.
I mean, if the village is paying for it, then it's not you as a person, it's the village as an entity. So certainly that shouldn't be a problem. The more difficult thing would be can we share it with the town?
Well, I'm trying to get the town to kick in too, because,
Yeah,
so
we
it's,
appreciate
we can share it that much.
Well, and I think the question is it a whole license or do we have to have a license for each user? Because that's where it
Right,
gets.
and that's what I'm trying to work out with these folks. As you might imagine, getting them on the phone is difficult.
They're just people.
So what did you want to say about the zoning officer?
I'm really hoping to be a little bit, well, a lot more involved than last time in terms of reviewing any of the applications and, I'll be sharing an office with somebody, so I think it would make a lot of sense for me to have more direct involvement.
What I'm hoping to do tonight is, if in executive session, go through some of the applications that we have received. I think we should narrow it down to a few that we want to interview, and then I certainly think that you should be part of that
That'd be great.
6-on-1 interview process. And then we'll go from
Well,
there.
they're gonna have to know how to work under scrutiny.
One would think. Anything else for Tom?
Do we want to change this to just the cell phone, or do we want to add, excuse me, the $600 for this program? Or do you just want to leave the word as a 500?
One thing I would caution you is you realize you're opening up your personal cell phone for public.
Yeah, I have that arrangement with the town.
Okay, so you're accustomed to.
Yeah, and, there's not a whole lot I do with my cell phone anyway.
There should be a certain age, and we don't care.
Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Wind still blowing?
Yes. Not sorry, but it is.
Only till 7, it's about to stop.
Till 7? Yeah.
I'm gonna stop in a second.
So it's.
It'll start sucking, right?
Okay.
All right. Right on time. DPW. Numbers looking to me.
Thanks, Dusty.
Thanks, Tess. No, I have one question. I don't know if there's anything, did you want to go through these line by line? Or?
No. I went through them 4 times today.
Sidewalk contractual, which is, we talked about it briefly last time, 5410.4. I'd like to
have
zero,
that.
I'd like to zero that out if it's not already.
Let's straighten. It's gotta be in general, right? Because it's not showing up on mine.
50, see it, Tom.
I got it. You want to zero it out?
5410.4, I want to zero that out.
Okay, got it.
Why?
Because I think any sidewalk work we do can come out of the sidewalk reserve. I don't know that we need the sidewalk contractual and the sidewalk reserve, which we established and putting some money in.
And we have the
Kind of
sidewalk grant.
community build version of the sidewalks that we've been doing is really more of a village reserve line type project
Right.
rather than the contractual reimbursement model. The other question I had for Deb and Dusty was this storm drainage contractual.
Distribution system reserve. But I don't really want to get in there because if we find anything that needs to be fixed, that'll come out of the distribution system. Out of the reserves. So the $35,000 is a number that needs to be there, whether we find it, whether we use it all or not, because we need to be able to fix what we're finding.
So the actual televising of the sewer lines piece.
Right.
Shouldn't that come out of sewer? And then depending on what's broken, will determine where that repair money comes from.
The reason it's coming out of storm sewer is because a part of the I&I is going to be the basins and stuff that need to be replaced. And that's storm sewer as far as I'm concerned, not sewer. The televising, maybe you're right, the televising should come out of sewer.
Yeah.
But any replacement's gonna come out of storm sewer. I think. Is there a reason that,
No, it's
we
just,
haven't done anything with the storm sewers. Now we have a direction because we have a baseline. But it's really not the storm sewers that we have to spend the money on. The money needs to go through the sewer system to find out where we need to really spend the money before we work. But there are enough basins that we probably have to do some work there.
okay. Anything else that jumps out at anyone for DPW?
So are we leaving that at 35?
Yes.
Okay.
And notice that I put in, oh, you haven't gotten there yet. You haven't looked at water and sewer.
What was the line that we started with? Was that 5410.4 or was that the other?
Yeah.
5410.4 was the sidewalk contract.
Right. And I never had sidewalk under DPW. It just never was there before.
Okay.
If I had a concern, it's the snow removal contractual, I don't know. That's $6,500, is there anything else there isn't snow removal contractual, that's salt,
No, I believe salt has its own line.
right?
Snow removal contractual, I believe is usually what.
It's under snow removal contractual. It's salt.
So, it's 6,500,
It is.
is that enough?
I believe we upped it just a little bit last year to cover, what we had been.
We did, and we didn't use it. We upped it, then we had too much left over, then this year I think we were using too much.
We upped it last budget year. We normally have been budgeting for 175 tons, and we upped it to 200 tons on
Okay.
last year, and we are right on par to use
200 tons.
pretty darn close.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we've already ordered 120.
And how much a ton is it?
I don't know exactly what the price per ton is.
I know the monthly bills are between 950 and 1050.
We've been averaging about 40 ton a month, I would say. We did get a little bit more input or salt from the school this year. They used a lot more than they normally do. So they jumped from 50 to at least 75, if not 100. I'm trying to get them to pitch in at least another 20 tons because of how much they've used this year. But
Okay.
that's, not really.
Okay.
But this weekend is March, so we should be done with salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, over on water. Debbie mentioned you made some additions.
I made a change. I don't think,
Was that water or sewer?
I don't remember, what was it? I think it was DPW. The 1,500?
Yeah, that was DPW contractual 1640.4, I believe.
Yeah.
Last
Maybe.
year, they cut that in half, and it put us really tight this year. And especially with, I don't know what the direction is going with vehicle replacement, but we're really gonna need that if we do, push vehicles back an extra 2 years. We're talking replacing things like tires and possible.
So I have that, actually, I haven't had a chance to show you, Dust. Replacement cycle for DPW, I'm looking at 5 years on the pickups.
Okay, that's what we've been at.
Now, one of them might have to be pushed off a year. So
Okay.
that might be
We can,
the F-250 from the water department.
yeah,
It's
which
gonna
would be
it's gonna
fine.
a 6
That's probably, and I believe in our next replacement run of that, we're gonna downsize that a little bit. The truck we got last time was a little bit larger than we probably needed.
But my plan is for 5-year replacements on the pickups, 7-year replacements on the dump, on the 2 dumps.
On both dumps now,
Both dumps, because the F-550 you bought used.
yes, and that's the truck we don't use quite as much, so that could probably even range out further. I mean, the
That's-
dump truck we had 30 years, so.
That's fine, but I mean, I built it in for that.
Okay.
So now when you don't use it, that
The-
gives you more flexibility.
Okay, yes, because the other dump truck, the 350, is the truck we salt and plow with the most, which
Right.
means it gets the most wear and tear.
So I've got that on a 7-year.
Okay, it might be more beneficial to switch that out with maybe one of the pickups, which don't get as much use. That 350 dump truck is probably our go-to truck. It runs the salt route all the winter long. It helps that we bought the second salter this year, at least takes a little bit from that, but that truck is that's our brush truck, salt truck.
Right.
That's definitely one that gets more use than that truck and the supervisor truck are probably the 2 most used vehicles.
Okay. And then the bucket truck and the tractor, I've got at 10 years. just-
Yeah, I mean, the bucket truck, probably, that's just a guess. I mean, again, the bucket truck we probably had more than 20 years, and that was bought very used. And the tractor.
Just bought it.
Yeah, the tractor is, 10 years is probably just an estimate. That new John Deere we've got is a very nice piece of equipment. My one question on the tractor would be if this sidewalk that they're discussing going up West Main with becomes reality and we add that much more sidewalk that we're gonna be plowing, we have a lawnmower that's gonna need to be replaced in the next couple of years, and maybe looking at something that would be more universal that could mow, but also be used to plow sidewalks with. I've got some stuff in mind that would be maybe used for both in the future. Again, not this year, not probably, and like I said, it all really depends on how much sidewalk we continue to add.
Right.
That tractor works, but it is rough on it with plowing.
All right, any questions for Dusty? Anyone? I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks, Dust.
Real quick, before I go, for you, I had dealt with Dave, from the sewer plant, Dave Boyce from the sewer plant, and there's a couple things that we need signatures on, at
He
some point.
hasn't filled them out yet.
The one I don't believe has even, it's already done, it just needs a signature for the, what's the first name?
Certification.
The certification for the,
2018.
it just requires me and you to sign it to be certified for this. Change of notifier agreement for if there's an accident, and it just requires 2 signatures, everything else is filled out. The speedies permit, on the other hand, I'm supposed to meet with Dave to have it filled out tomorrow.
Okay.
And
I have
it's, you have it too, I printed off a copy, so, I just have to get you to fill that. The other one is just a matter of signatures. You want me to catch up with you in the next couple days and?
Yeah, when you have the other one ready, just let me know. I'll sign them up.
Okay, perfect. All right.
And we approved the pump this morning, right before you got here,
The pump.
the flight pump that you need.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, excellent. All right.
Okay, good. Thanks, Dust.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
Yes, you too.
Thanks.
So, you done with sewer as well?
For the moment, we'll come back to those.
So you know, no sewer or water with the increases,
What's that?
no sewer or water increases.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because I heard they went up a lot.
They doubled.
So, let's see. I think
I'm being nice to you guys.
we can, unless anybody else wants to do things differently, we can just roll down the expenses side of the general worksheet. Make sure we all have the same numbers and we're good with what's there.
Before we do that, when do we get real sales tax numbers?
May
That's
30th.
like March.
May 30th.
That's not
I mean,
before.
sales tax comes in monthly, so we only know what we get when we get it.
Oh, right.
When by-
Assessments.
Assessments is, that
Yeah,
is what it
That's the
is.
final number.
That is what it is.
And then, what did you say, I think you said this the other day, but what was the final word from Dwayne about our appropriated, or our fund balance rather? Do we know what kind of leeway we have to put?
May 31, 2018. Wrong date in there. May 31, 2018, unencumbered balance was 497,475
For general.
in general. It's 18% of the budget.
Yeah.
And we're into
That's
Last
probably,
year we were,
right around the same,
what are we?
real close.
Huh.
And
that
we're,
feels.
we're,
And
we're,
we,
quiet.
I thought we spent it down.
we tried to.
Stuff.
We're into that 497 pretty deeply in EMS.
Right.
But there is some cushion.
And then the comptroller's is 10, the recommendation is 10%?
Minimum
of-
10.
Of
Minimum,
the levy.
They say about 17. That's
minimum
good.
10 of the total budget. Around 20, they start to take reporting.
Yes.
And we're at 18, so.
Or 18.
Are you starting with revenue?
No, I'd like to start with expenses.
Okay.
You want to spend it before we have it?
It's
So does that mean we'll come back to sales tax?
Yes.
okay.
I also have a question. When do we declare that it's gonna be over 2%?
Public,
March 7th.
yeah, March 7th, our next meeting is when we're,
Can I be out of there?
I'd like to be, it's a Thursday.
What a kid.
Is it good?
Don't make me
It's
send you.
11? Should be. It'll be close. All right.
Okay, what line are we starting?
Expenses, let's start with, let's see, auditor, I'll start at auditor 1320.4. Got a 10,000 still. Let's see, actually go line by line.
Mhm.
All of the personnel stuff is 3% raise, right?
Except for DPW.
Okay. Clerk treasurer training, you got it 5. Clerk personal 5305. Law contractual, what do you have?
7,500.
Okay,
What was it?
5,000.
So I'm not to clear this for you.
Someone's gonna have to stay home.
I don't know that that was an option. I was told it was mandatory.
Fall training?
Absolutely, since the day I started.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's why I've not missed one.
We'll talk about it. Building personnel, 3214. Let's see, office building contractual is what, 20?
Mhm.
3,500. See, it's gotta be a number here, it's different somewhere. We did most of this last time, actually. Central garage equipment, we got a 2. Right?
Mhm. Oh, central garage equipment, yes.
Building repairs, central garage building repairs.
And it's 500.
DPW contractual, we just talked about that, is 15.
Mhm.
Training is 1, fuel is 5,000.
Mhm.
Liability is 9340.
Mhm.
Workers' comp is 9509. Telephone, what's that?
2694.
Okay. Community association dues.
2.
Why do we have those in water also?
Because they're a water association.
Of course. Contingent account is 0. Police 299.76. Equipment, we've got it 4. So I talked with Joe last week. There were 2 separate lines, one for contractual and one for police training. And he wants to now combine those into the contractual line at 20,000. Police fuel, we've got at 6,000.
Mhm.
Vehicle maintenance 4,500, insurance 12. Workers' comp, phone. Small uniform 4-1. Okay. Fire never changes 10178.
I'll tell you how much easier this is that Gordon's not doing it.
Contractual warranty,
Didn't he always do it?
5.
Yes, but we usually have to discuss it to make him do it.
Oh, that's true.
Fire department prevention. We should write that somewhere.
2.
I know, what is that?
I think he uses that for the stuff that he orders for the kids. Everything's with kids.
Fire department prevention. I was just asking what that was. Renovations, you got an 8.
Yep.
Increasing it up, is that in years?
I was unclear there between renovations, station maintenance, and then the reserve line for the building.
Well, the renovations we did to, any expenses that like MRB did with design or anybody did
Got
with design and stuff. Station maintenance is like toilet paper and stuff that needs to be done around the station. And then the reserve is to plan for the building.
So like when they did the drain and stuff, that was all maintenance?
Because the renovation, we've never seemed to spend any of it, and the maintenance seems to be quite a bit. I mean, it hasn't broken 5 in the past couple of years, like.
Well, it's all, everything is split with EMS too.
Right, well, there's another one in EMS's line,
Right,
which also we haven't been high close to what we budgeted for.
I think,
The-
I think the go there is where we should be.
We haven't
Like, we're
done it.
budgeting the right number, we're just not following.
That could be fair. I mean, I'm not for taking away from
Yeah, I
building
think,
maintenance. I just was noticing we were quite a bit higher than we usually spend.
I think that's kind of the problem, is we've blurred the lines a little bit between exactly the way you just described it, the renovation line, the capital line, and the maintenance line are like, well, we'll sort of push the renovation line up, and it's,
One of the things we'll discuss a little later on when we talk about EMS personnel and executive session is that I want to start much earlier this year on both those departments' budgets. And I want members of this board to be much more involved in how those budgets are put together
in the original projection.
than ever before.
Well, I've done.
Are you
just
changing the
couple
approach?
months.
Next year,
Should be.
Should be quite a few things, hopefully in the next few weeks.
in the next few weeks
We'll talk.
before, they've already done their budget, right?
We've got some things to talk about a little later this evening.
Maybe this is a bigger discussion, I'm just curious if,
Always love when someone says, I think this may be a bigger discussion.
but I'm just,
Let's take a step back.
we tend to look at, percent change based on, from one proposed budget to the next.
Right.
Versus-
Versus actuals.
Yeah. I'm just curious
That,
if there's a reason that,
Well,
instead
that's
of
the
looking at
reason.
percent change from, it's a percent change from actual versus proposed.
Yeah, well,
Because the percentage of change is between what is adopted and what you're gonna adopt for this year. That's what's changed, not what's expended, but what was adopted.
I think percentage change is just what people feel in their personal budgets when we change taxes. To me, that's why it's the
Right.
fundamental number.
I will say on mine, I made a percent over the expected that the budget is for.
Just-
Like I made another column, I think to kind of what you're asking.
That's what I'm
How much
saying.
are we
This is a
spending?
different, this is a metric that isn't on the general spreadsheet.
Right.
I was just
Okay.
curious about.
one of the things I caution you about is using that number.
Right, it requires-
Expected.
No, it requires some I used it mostly to then look at what, so for instance, one of them was salt, right? We haven't used a lot by the end of the year.
Right.
And the expected mathing out didn't make a lot of sense, but I was like, okay, that seems to make sense, or
Right,
I think there's baseball fees that we'll use in the spring, but we haven't
Right,
used
they're
yet.
wrong.
right.
So it didn't make any sense, but there were a couple of things, and those are the ones I'm bringing up, that were what's going on here?
And why is it that way? Because I look at those numbers and I can sort of judge whether or not, I've been doing it a while, so I can judge whether or not I need to go back to last year's. In some cases, I went back to the previous years because I know that because we were in the middle of the project, we didn't do X, Y, and Z, and now,
Right.
so my variance should be to that, not to what my expected is for this past year.
Right. I think it is a useful number though to have, just as far as
Yes.
highlighting things to dig in a little deeper.
That's just a newish person question.
So I mean, in reality, with this many budget lines, you should be looking at both.
Yeah.
Right.
Figuring out which one makes the most sense. And then if it's way off with either one, then why? And if it's a personnel line, then it's gotta be overtime. If it's something else, then. Okay. We just did Tom's lines. Ambulance, we talked about last meeting, adjusting that number, because we've readjusted some of Tammy and Vicky's allocations to EMS. However, we didn't factor in the reduction in the manager's pay and the fact that we don't have a manager that we're paying at the moment. So we're gonna leave the ambulance personnel line, personal services line at 490,921, which is what was in the budgets that the towns adopted. So that saves us messing with those lines and the headache that accompanies it, and we'll reallocate that headache a few lines further down. The rest of ambulance is the same. Gets down to 5010.1 is street administration. Those are all set. I got that. Let's see, what do we have for street maintenance equipment?
100.
What is that?
I
Placeholder?
don't really know because we have never used, we've
Well,
used it
they
last
are
3 years.
They're gonna, what is street maintenance equipment? It's like, if they have to buy a new rubber, whatever, to spread out the tar. That's, and I mean, it's not a whole lot. It's a broom, it's a whatever.
Street maintenance contractual, it's paving, chips, snow removal, we just talked about. Street lighting, we got what, 25?
We're,
Street lighting contractual, yeah, 25.
yeah, sorry.
Sidewalk contractual, we just zeroed. Off-street parking contractual, zero.
We zeroed last time.
Publicity, we haven't used in a long time because what we need is publicity.
Street lighting, is that maintenance? Sorry.
We, some of that, well, like I said, we used to, you zeroed that last time, the publicity.
Street lighting contractual, that's,
Our street lights.
That's payment to NICEAG?
Mm-hmm.
youth, we've talked about summer baseball, youth, summer baseball, youth. Summer field trips is what, 4,500?
Yeah.
Youth commission, TCR. Or library, 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Historical society, museum contractual, 500.
Mm-hmm.
Going once,
There was a blue line on mine.
going
Got
twice.
the money.
What are we debating? Whether or not,
Whether we give the historical society $500 or not.
the historian or the
Historical society is museum contractual.
Oh, is that just general support of
Is that what we're
operations?
back into town?
They don't seem much care for you people.
That's probably,
I think majority of it.
presented, but not since I've been
What's that?
They send letters,
They what?
here.
what they.
Did they send
request.
orders?
Yes.
Yes.
Kind of,
I think we
thank
should
you,
kind of,
thank you in advance for the money you always give us, kind of letter.
If you want them here.
if they want to be political, they can be political, cut them.
Stay away, yeah.
Got one for cut 'em.
I'd keep it
Got one for keep it in.
I'm on the record every year saying the same thing, so I shouldn't change it
That's
any other
very
year.
consistent. Anyone else?
I guess I mean, it's not worth the debate right now, I'd just be interested in knowing more about their general expenditures and what's, I mean, do they pay rent? Like, I don't know any thing
We
about
gave them the land.
Yeah, they
We
probably.
gave them the business. There's a whole story behind it.
A lot of stories with the historical society.
Isn't that kind of the idea?
strong opinion on that. It's $500.
So we got one cut 'em, one leave 'em, and one no strong opinion. Ben?
I'll vote to leave, I would vote to leave it.
You make me the tiebreaker, are you?
Sorry, what did you say, Keith?
I said I would vote to leave it, it's $500.
I'll leave it.
So the official vote is 2 ins, 1 out. The mayor hasn't voted.
I think Ben just said he wanted to leave 'em in, or he's still.
He's
That's
still,
okay.
yeah, he is.
Yeah. I'll leave it in this year.
Let me off the hook. Village historian, I did have a conversation with Sandy. She would like to retain the stipend, but doesn't need as much of a contractual. She has some projects she's working on. So I'm okay with leaving the historian number at 1,500, taking historian contractual down to 250. If you don't have that already.
Yep.
So what are the difference between those two funds?
So village historian is actually a stipend
Okay.
to the village historian. The contractual is things like magazine subscriptions,
Okay.
historical society memberships if she were to join New York State Museum Association or what have you.
We just approved $500 that she could tap into.
No. No, she does not the historical
No,
society.
because
there's no
we
affiliation.
actually had
No.
grants.
There is a, they work towards the same thing, but there's not a relationship between the two.
There's a reimbursement to her, so no, she really hasn't spent.
So 25 or
250.
250 is not gonna
No.
catch her. She's,
No, she says I think she spent like $80. Give it.
a little buffer.
Farmer's market, we just went over. Food Net is Meals on Wheels. We talked about that last time.
We did decide the grant was 1450, or are we leaving in that?
No, it's $14.50 is the grant.
Well, actually, what they have is, because they're matching the grant, so they're gonna spend $2,890.
Right, but that's not, for this line, it should be 14. Okay.
Let's see, a couple lines down. Food Net, then we've got zoning contractual, zoning publishing. Okay, zoning legal. I want to take up to 10,000. That would be ZBA legal. Planning personnel, we're still waiting on a planner. Planning contractual, still waiting on a planner. Planning legal, I want to take to 20,000.
Yep.
That is planning board legal. Planning board appropriation, I talked to Jessica about it, and she does not anticipate hiring a consultant for anything from the planning board side this next budget year, so we're gonna take that down to 5,000. As a just in case number.
Sorry, which one was that?
Planning board appropriation. Storm drainage contractual we just talked about. What do you have for landfill brush? That's the 7,200?
Yes,
All right, then read me the starting at state retirement, 'cause I don't know what I have to see.
24,557.
Yeah.
44,471.
Yeah.
27,447. 1,600. 22,566. 37,553. 780. 22,934. 6,100. 60,834. 143,382. 4211, 21,719, 69,041.
Okay. So, the band sidewalk principal for 22,022.
22,022.
So there is $74-ish thousand left in the
22022.
74,000-ish left in the money that was borrowed for the lease to finish up the South Street sidewalks.
Okay,
I would like to use that money over the next 2 years to pay principal and interest on what we borrowed to do the sidewalks. So make our first couple of years loan payments based off of the money we didn't spend, rather
That
than
makes sense.
let it sit. The only other thing we could use it for is actual sidewalk installation, which we don't have
enough to do.
enough to do anything meaningful, and we don't have a project.
So how much is
ready-
in, how much is left in it?
About 74,000.
And the principal is 22?
Yeah, but we
So the
also,
principal line is gonna be 22,022.
Okay.
well, it's not really, because I have to, as the expenses, I have to put in what the budget is, and then I have to go up to revenue and put in what we're gonna take from the band. I understand what you're taking the difference, and
It's not gonna be a revenue line. Because then it just it negates itself. The money sits in a bank account, like a reserve.
right, and I have to transfer it to the general fund, like a revenue. And then we pay the full amount of the,
Oh, I see what you're saying, pay the full amount.
yeah, okay, so I just need to fix those numbers, so,
Then we'll work on that
okay.
later. For now, put in 22,022.
Yep, I get what you mean, okay,
And 0 on the interest, because that'll be.
yep, because we're gonna pay that too, okay.
Keep monkeying with it, you're gonna break it, dude.
It's cold in here.
We're on live stream, please don't make me say anything.
That's too late.
I could get this thing off the wall.
All right, lease principal fire truck, we've got a 79,599.
There's no interest, I missed the interest,
It's also being paid out of
the same.
same place.
It's down farther, Debbie. It's down about 3 lines.
Oh, at least, yeah, we were talking about the band.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's fine.
What did I miss? What were you-
the fire truck.
So now we're at 9785.61. That's lease principal on the fire trucks. That's 2 of them in there, right?
Mhm.
So the ladder truck and the new pumper.
Mhm.
Then we've got the police chief's vehicle on the next line. I don't have anything under ambulance monitor or backhoe lease. Did you put the backhoe lease back in?
Nope, she put it in here. She put it in the reserve account.
And what happened to the monitor?
The monitors are paid off.
For the DPW equipment reserve this year, I want to take it down to 30.
42.
Do I
Because I
hear,
took the 12 and.
do I hear 30? I think we can do 30 this year and then bump the replacement cycle next year.
No, remember I just took the Blackco out and I added it in, and I thought I was adding it. So if you're gonna go to 30, I need another $12,000. So I just put it in today.
Right, but if we take it down to 30, which is really taking it down to 18, then 20.
The backhoe isn't in your replacement cycle.
I understand that, but if we take next year, if we go to 35, then we still got $200,000 in this reserve account in a few years. It's adding up with this replacement cycle structure, especially if Dusty's not going to be getting some of the dumps.
Right.
This DPW reserve account gets really big a few years out.
That's because we go 5 years and then we spend all the money. That's exactly what they did this time. Okay, I can understand that. I still say that's what because you're gonna need, in 2 years, you're gonna need the 24,000 to come out. Next year, you're gonna need the 24,000 to come out. The 12,000 was there to offset it. See, that's what the cost of the backhoe lease is every 2 years.
Right, but even
But
if I
we're in
take,
a year that we don't need to pay anything, but we should be saving for next.
but even if I add $12,000 a year to this replacement cycle, it doesn't. In 10 years, we're at almost 200,000.
Sorry, your replacement cycle is looking for 18 a year?
No, it's actually looking for 30 a year.
Okay.
But even if we shortchange it this year to add the 12 in.
Got
Okay.
But I think we can go 35 a year. That'll give us a little more cushion.
Okay, I'll take that, because the other thing, you're putting in a replacement cycle, we don't know how much anything's gonna cost. Look at the difference in a fire truck, it went up almost $80,000 from what we thought it was gonna be. I think that's why we padded so much, is because we know it's not gonna be anywhere close to what we just paid.
Oh, we should
Never
definitely
forget what you-
Pardon?
You're never gonna resell for what you think you are.
Yeah, I don't have any
We
resale on any
didn't
of the
put it, we
pickups.
don't put any resale in here because we don't know.
I only
You
put
don't put
in,
anything in at all?
I did for the dump, the 2 dump
I mean,
trucks.
we go and get the money, but we don't put it in the budget.
Somebody's gonna pay something for a dump truck. But the pickups, I did not do a sale on it. All right, so let's make that DPW equipment reserve 35.
Okay.
And did you say you changed the
Part of the
the
deal.
backhoe?
That's
Oh,
about-
Backhoe is not
Went
in
to
the reserve
zero.
line. DPW building reserve, we zero that?
I mean,
Fire apparatus, we got at 140.
what am I gonna do with it?
Firehouse repair at 25.
Coming in the tax stabilization is 0.
Yes. Firehouse repair is 25.
Yep.
Okay, police vehicle reserve this year only is 12,500. You got that?
Yep.
That's gonna step up to 15,000 next year and then stay at 15. If you wanna make a note for next year.
Okay.
Um, Police equipment reserve is 2,500. And that will stay there definitely. Village building reserve, what do we have there?
10. Should be more than that.
What is in that account?
A little over 100, well, no, it's about 80. Oh, I have-
Is that the village office building reserve?
Yep.
76.
It has how much in there?
76,000.
That's plenty.
You're just gonna insulate the basement and spend half of that.
We got bigger problems than just one solution, basically.
I'd like to this year take that to 5. Because we're not actually spending out of that account. Should be probably, but we're not.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
I'd like to take the village building reserve number to 5,000 for this year. Until we figure out what the heck we're actually doing with this building.
Yeah.
Because we're not actually spending out of that line very much, if at all. Even though we probably should be.
I do intend to look at some of the other recommendations that Snug made around, also around installation and whatnot to try and help some of the issues we're having, but I don't think it'd be that much of what we have in there.
And if there is a bigger, if we do need to do bigger work, I think we need to spread it out over a couple of years.
We have when Snug was putting in the units for our office in the police department, they came in to tell us that the whole ceiling inside the house is gone. You can put your hand
Yeah,
right
you
there.
had mentioned that before. I don't have any concept of what that would be too, so.
Which is why I don't think that there's never gonna be enough money in that line to do what you, I mean. So,
Sidewalk reserve, I want to take to 5 this year. Because again, we don't have anything, to me, that's more of a repair line now. I don't envision us actually saving enough to put in $1 million worth of sidewalk anytime soon.
I know there's talk about the South Street block there. I don't have any concept of how much that would kind of cost, if we've got something for that, or
What did it cost to do Wake Street, do you remember? The community build?
No, I don't know off the top of my
Dad,
head.
do you remember what kind of DPW time we had in there?
remember that they were not happy. They were there the whole time. This community bills are,
They wrote it into the contract, and we're not allowed to sub that out anymore, so we've got to be there.
okay. You know what year it was? 16, 17?
Yeah.
When did you do that sidewalk from your
It was
house?
when Tim was here, right? Wasn't Tim this year?
it was the summer that I moved into in 14.
16, 17, maybe?
With 14.
Was it that long?
When did you come back?
Yeah.
Came back in 14, right?
Came back from where?
From being
No, it was-
gone? When did you come back to take Rob's place? Or was it,
Tim.
yeah, Tim's?
It was 2 years after I'd been on.
10,
The
14,
year-
so it's about
years
15,
or
it was
year.
15 or 16.
14, probably about right.
14, 15.
I think it was the summer of 14. I think it was happened when I moved in, it was still a slate, right? And they did it later that
I
summer.
remember like together, so it was.
Yeah, I did 14, 15, so it was just, saying that I did 5 count.
2014. That was yesterday, right? Okay.
So close, yes, so
I
far
have no
away.
time perception at all.
Gets worse by the day.
I think it was a reason for that.
Yes, because I'm old. You're gaining, buddy, you're gaining.
So I would like sidewalk reserve at 5.
Oh, yeah, this must be concrete for Robertson, so,
$3,000
okay, well, yes, about $3,000, yeah.
in materials.
Mhm.
DPW's on the clock.
Yeah,
Plus how many weeks.
no, it wasn't that long, I think it was pretty good.
I think they did it in 3 days. I don't think it took them
That's
that
pretty
long.
good.
Yeah, okay, so where were you? EMS was your sidewalk, it was just
So EMS equipment, fire radio, EMS vehicle, what do you have for EMS?
15,000.
Okay, EMS communication. So if you haven't taken a look at the capital replacement cycle spreadsheets, please do.
Where is that?
It's in the Dropbox now in the budget folder. I have replacement cycles, and thank you, Ben Darfur, for creating this for fire. And I co-opted it for EMS, police, and DPW. Take a look at them, see if you see anything glaringly missing. EMS, I think we need to look at an ambulance in 2020-21 cycle. We're gonna have to start to increase what we put into that account starting next year.
Yes.
And once we're at 25,000 a year, it should be fairly self-sustaining if we're on a 12-year replacement cycle for the ambulance.
Do you have a contribution amount established on these things?
It's under deposits, bottom, towards the bottom.
Reserves are all at the very bottom of this spreadsheet.
Which sheet are you looking at?
Never mind. I'll have to go through this.
Fire utility vehicle is what?
7,500.
EMS capital reserve. 10,000.
10.
And fire equipment reserve,
15.
15.
That's what we talked about that day.
Right, so the EMS capital reserve in the budgets we presented to the towns was 15,000. I'm gonna reduce that to 10. Capital reserve was their request for when we are under budget and we have money left over that they feel that should be kept in ambulance. Given the fact that we're looking at $140,000 of overtime, I'm less sympathetic to that argument than I were before, so I'm gonna take the capital reserve line down to 10. And then the fire equipment reserve is a new line that the chief requested, since we're keeping the fire apparatus reserve for vehicles only. He wanted a separate equipment reserve for other stuff. He wanted 20 this year. We budgeted for 20, but I actually want to take that to 15. And we can reevaluate when we look at these budgets going into the fall. So you should have 2821857. You don't.
I don't. I have 2812,
Wait, what?
427.
I don't have either.
Is anybody there, anybody?
This is for total proposed budget?
Total expenses, yeah.
You're what?
I left in what you said about the sidewalk, so it's not bad.
I'm at 2821857.
I'm at 2841500.
Say that one more time.
2821
No, I'm at 2812.
857.
I am about I'm $10,000 off. Somewhere, and it changed. So you said, so when you were talking about the capital reserve, you were talking about the EMS capital reserve,
Correct.
and I had that at 10. Is that what you have?
Yes, bless you.
Without going through it exactly. Sure.
No, but I mean, no, yeah.
You did your
Been divorce, strictly disorder.
Must watch one of the TV.
from here. People see it, they had to like cut that.
Well, we're closer, because I don't want to. Thousand, about $100.
No. So that all doesn't include. So this spreadsheet. This. And then it also. So this is taxes, right? Oh, so it's separate. Yeah. Which means that there's. Yeah, so if you like copy and paste the taxes. So that's good.
Yeah, the other guy, hotel conference, it's next to the water park, the water park. Or no, I guess it's not here.
That's why budget meetings, I just wish we could set upstairs,
We've got all of our support groups upstairs, but they're all like,
my computers.
they're set up, but they're still watching.
Put things on the big screen.
They didn't get to come
We
this
used,
first
well,
one.
that was like that TV spot.
So it's like,
Yeah.
Do you want to just say the numbers now?
Yeah.
no, they really didn't. Last year.
I'll read them off.
So starting with the
Board personnel,
They did
at 15,
LA.
Yeah.
7,500,
Yeah.
2,000,
No, I just made that.
2,500,
Yeah, we got 10,000 all over.
Yep.
1947.
He says,
Just a form, so that it's not like. You will see what rate.
Right, well, I changed it because I didn't change her number. Now that she's a deputy clerk, her number is right here, the 14, 15, 10,
14, 15.
point one.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay, just got it.
Okay, so,
We got 47,900 for that.
so but we're 250 for equipment, 5,053.05.
Okay,
That was all
Okay, and then
the
from
time I got.
47.
okay, 47,99.
Yeah.
And all contractually, 7,500. 214, 20,000, 5,000, 3,500, 10,500, 2,000, 2,500,
Yeah.
0,
Yeah.
1,000, 600, 2,000, 500, 15,000, 1,900, 1,000, 5,000, 9,340, 9,509, 2,694, 2,000,
So that.
299,786, 4,000,
That's how we ended up working.
6,000, 4,500, 12,000, 0 for training. Police workers' comp is 5,000, telephone 5,000, 2,000, 4,000, 1,000, 10,178, 10,000, 6,000, 11,000, 5,000, 2,000, 11,000, 2,000, 8,000, 10,000, 7,000, 4,500 for physicals, 15,000, 24,500, 51,000, 125, 2,500, 5,000, 3,000, 10,000, 2,500, 1,000, 5,000, 28,408, 200, 500, 1,000, 4,000, 490, 921, 5,500, 4,500, 7,500, 1,000, 8,000, 4,000, 7,500, 500, 6,500, 5,000, 4,500, 3,000, 2,500, 25,000, 4,504, 2,300, 32,000, 1,750, 5,000, 27,255, 94,755, 100, 35,000, 47,000. Next, 00, then snow removal personnel, 7,697, 0, 6,500, 25,000.
just spread them out. It's hard to reach out.
000, youth at 66,508, 3,200, 2,000, 10K11, 1,500, 2,000, 1,000, 4,500, 29,137, 500, 5,000, 500, 1,500, 250.
Does that mean?
Grant contractual is 0, farmer's market grant 1450.
Okay, see, she had 2890 in here. Because
Which is
that's what
dollar
they're
for
doing.
dollar.
Right, because they're gonna match dollar for dollar, so I don't know how to do that, because if
Please
I
match it.
We are.
yeah, their time, DPW time for everything they do, our time.
Okay. Match.
And then I had 7610, which is the difference between the 10,711 and this amount. I had 7610. Oh, it's 2890
7610.
and 7610. Okay.
And then 2,500, 520, 1,000, 10,400, 15,500, 10,000, 10,400, 1,000, 20,000, 5,000, 35,000. 12,662, 0, 7,200. Didn't already went through those. What's your bottom line number?
Have we taken on all the master companies?
Yeah, that's.
281,247, we're off by $20. Go back up to
Just count those.
state retirement. 9010.8.
Eight, okay.
24,557.
Yep.
44,471. It's 27,447.
Yep.
1,600.
Yep.
22,566. 37,553. 780.
Yep.
22,934.
Yep.
6,100.
Yep.
68,34.
Yep.
140,382.
Yep.
42,11.
Yep.
21,719. 69,041.
Do I have this number?
22,022.
Yeah, okay.
0. 79,599. 78,48. Leased interest, fire truck 12,178. 35,000. 140. 25,000. 12,500. Police equipment 2,500.
Oh, that's, yeah, that's, how to do that. But
Wait a second, $20.
Yes.
right.
Okay.
All right, I think we're close. Back up to revenues now. Interest and penalties on real property tax is about the same every year. It's A1090. It's 3,500, and then Keith, you had a question about sales tax?
Yeah, I was wondering if, do we get a hard number on that, or is there any way to talk to the county to get a better guess at what it might be?
Have spoken to the county. They're projecting 2 to 3% increase over this year's actuals. They're budgeting for 2 to be conservative. What our this year's actuals are is up for a little bit of, we don't know what it'll be through the end of May.
But higher.
Higher than last year for sure. I think based on what we've received, we only had through the end of November, right? We haven't received December yet.
Yes, I've received December,
Just
just got
got
posted, yeah.
So last time Vicki and I talked, it looked like we were on pace for about 390 to 391 in actual receipts. So I plugged in 395. 2% would take us over 400, but I'd rather be conservative on that number since spending can be fickle. So I have 395 in that line. Utilities gross receipts, we said we would look into, but I budgeted the same number, 35,000. Clerk fees at 750, police fees at 1,400. Police vest reimbursement is a grant for 2,000, fire inspection fee 1,500. Police contracts, I want at 10,000. Talked to Joe about increasing our contracts with Burn Dairy and Grassroots slightly. should be fairly easy to get to 10,000. Summer rec, 4,500, summer camp, 4,800, baseball, 4,500, youth, 11,500, summer rec, 62,307. United Way, summer rec, 3,500, zoning fees, 1,200, planning board fees, we already said 10,000. Stop DWI is gone apparently. Fire protection, we're putting in this year's actual numbers of 302,089 and then 695,428 for EMS. Health insurance from the town for a code officer, 9216, earnings and interest, 600. Interest on reserve accounts, that should be 10,000 if you don't have it already. That should be fairly easy to hit, I hope. Rental wireless, 28,664, building permits of 7,000. Skip down to dial-up truck at 2,000. I've added back in the AIM funding of 15,000.
I was wondering if they'd done that.
Yeah. It does look like we're gonna be able to get that through some kind of shell game thing.
That's the revenue sharing one, right?
Yeah, state revenue sharing per capita will now be internet sales tax, unfunded mandate to the county. But I guess we'll take it where we can get it, right? Mortgage tax, we have at 14. Chips at 47, farmer's market promo 500, Mora farmer's market grant 1450. Vendor fee 325. We should keep, I think we can keep the intrafund transfer, which is really the EMS billing number, we can keep that at 90. Although I do want to look at mileage rates still. Then, the question before I start monkeying with the fund balance is, and I'll ask Deb.
Why, am I the one that has gonna?
So our tax rate is 710. Every few years we have a philosophical discussion about if we can keep the tax rate flat, should we? Or should we incrementally increase it slightly, knowing that payroll goes up, services cost more, in an effort to ward off the year where we see a 50-cent increase or a 75-cent increase. Back in 2015, out of the 14-15 cycle into the 15-16 cycle, we saw a 40-cent increase. Then the next year was a 20-some cent increase. The next year, the county reassessed everyone in the village, so that was essentially flat. And then we went up 20 cents last year. So if obviously, as a taxpayer, we'd love for the rate rates to be flat. But from a budget management standpoint, if you had a choice between a flat tax rate and an incrementally larger tax rate, what do we like better?
You're asking me?
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you.
Incremental, absolutely incremental.
So the alternative is kind of slowly stepping it up, knowing that we kind of fluctuate and hoping that kind of smooths out some of those ups and downs.
Yeah.
It's gonna be made that way as well.
I can tell you, I give you a prime example. Tennessee at one point had no sales tax whatsoever. And they had, then they had some kind of crisis in the state and with the federal government, and they had to put all this money in it. All of us, they went from 0 to 18%. So I know I can accommodate a 2% increase and live with it. But to go from 0 to 18, how do you even get that in the budget, especially if you're at the lowest end of the scale? I mean, the larger it's still hard when you make a lot of money, but really it's much worse on somebody who's making 20,000 than it is on somebody who's making 80,000. I'm sure somebody would disagree with it, but it's true.
So then the question then becomes how much is incremental? a nickel to the tax rate is going from 710 to 715 means it's $10 on a $200,000 home. Nickel, is it a dime, is it a quarter? Nickel ain't worth a dime anymore.
How much are we, I mean, so if we were gonna have our wish and pay for everything, how much do we need to raise it?
0. If we use some fund balance. We keep the rate flat this year, it's just a matter of,
How much from the fund balance?
Can we
Should
actually,
it
we be used?
depends on whether we pay the mayor.
I, for the record, think we should.
We haven't had that discussion yet.
Can you quickly read me the expense line that you have, just so I can,
Total expenses,
yeah, total expenses, so I don't want to go back and check everything, but just so I have the numbers, so when I play with the levy and stuff.
total expenses is 2,820,407.
Plus or minus.
Okay, 2, 0.
407. Which is a 3.9% increase in spending. Most of that is payroll.
Okay,
I'd like you fully charged.
Yes, my battery doesn't hold.
I know when you say that it's payroll, I would really would like, something not at this meeting, but I would like to have that differentiated within payroll. How much of that is retirement? How much is workman's comp? Like, I want to see the mandate rather than the,
The people. Okay, that's good. That's good.
What do you want to see then?
It's easy
I
to
want
write
to see
that.
the mandate, not the bottom line. So I want to know how much of it's workman's comp, how much is retirement. I mean, really, how much do we have control over that increase? That's what it comes down to.
Right, good one.
So,
So that changes, that's, needs to, what rate?
if we were gonna spend the 3.9, how much would it be? I mean, how much should we be seeing in the bottom line increase?
Well, it would be a large increase if we didn't use fund balance.
Right, without the fund balance.
Without fund balance? 66 cents.
Per,
Per 100,
The rate would go from 710 to 776. Now, we've used fund balance every year for as long as I've been on board. Trying to stay somewhere between 15 and 20% of our budget in unencumbered balance. We have that cushion for purchases. Last year, we used $108,000 $108,000 of fund balance. We would not need to use that much this year to keep it flat. This year, we would need to use about 87,000 to keep the rate flat. We'd be using less fund balance than last year. And then we add to that mix things like EMS overtime overages and other things that are eating into the fund balance. We just haven't gotten those year-end numbers yet because the year isn't over.
What about 10 cents?
Add 10 cents to the rate, yeah, we would be using 75,000 of fund balance.
is there any value in using fund balance for? Are we restricted on what we can use it for?
Well, general has to.
Is it more helpful to do non-reoccurring expenses? Or capital type expenses?
I mean, if we were gonna add, like, increase lines, probably want to add reserve line, right? If we're gonna needlessly increase.
The danger of taking unencumbered balance and moving into reserve lines is now you're restricting what that money can be used for. And you've removed any cushion in any situation you have a significant overage in a payroll line. Part of the reason the comptroller likes to see unencumbered balance of a certain amount is, number one, for payroll overages, and number two, for year-to-year budgeting. So you can try to smooth increases without a shock to the system. Long-term, nothing's changed from our first conversation at the first budget meeting, which is assessments go up at 2, levy goes up at 6. There's no way to balance that out without cutting services. But in the short term, in a year like this, we're actually, between the, to Deb's point, the non-payroll, the non-direct payroll mandatory pieces of payroll going up quite a lot when we added police officers, which we knew was going to happen. But between that and EMS, it's actually unfortunate that the sales tax revenue is up.
I notice, moving forward, those won't be as big of a shock in terms of percent change.
So if I look at our expenses against what's the encumbrance, if we use the full $87,000, brings our unencumbered balance down to 14%.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that.
If we use $75,000 of balance, which takes the rate up 10 cents, has been suggested to 720, that takes the unencumbered balance down to 15.5%.
Where does the state like it?
More than 10, less than 20.
It's all kind of arbitrary, but that does kind of ring to me. Just to put it up a little bit, just kind of always thinking about a little bit. I'm looking at the rates for all the various villages in the county, and we're outside of Freeville and Lansing. We are the third lowest as a total. Including county tax. That's like a total tax.
That's rate?
That's rate, yeah. And if it's just looking at the village rate, we're still lower than Dryden. Where else? In Groton by a bit.
Yeah, Dryden's rate is very high, and they have a huge tax base. Groton's is very high, and they have a low tax base. Where's the city? City's
Is
12.
Don't forget that sidewalk fees.
Yeah, penalties.
right, yes. Cities at, I don't know how to read this, 11.6, I think. For town general, I guess because they're not in town, so it's probably how that's laid out.
This only I'm thinking about is there any expenses we've had to like with the EMS administrator? Is that something that's going to show up on the books for the next year or two that might help to smooth that if we go up a little bit?
I mean, there's that, there's also the, like, our overtime in EMS right now is going to drain the fund balance, so the question is, how much of it will be left? So if we look at, we say that sets us up for 15, but we spend, another 50. Yeah, I mean, and pick a number, it's like within the realm of possibility of doing so. The fund balance at the end of the year is gonna be I guess what I'm saying is I would suggest caution as far as what we put in, because what we end up with is gonna be, I don't wanna say it's a gamble, but it could vary widely depending on how we take things from a policy perspective, which obviously is the job, but.
Do you have a number that is interesting to you, either from like a rate or a percentage of fund balance we'd like to want to?
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know enough about the fund balance to like say, no, I disagree with the comptroller's recommendation. It's not my area of expertise, I would say.
Well, but I guess what I'm thinking is if our aim is somewhere between 10 and 20, and we're at 18, we're talking about bringing that down to maybe 14 if we were to not do any change to the rate, plus whatever seems like a conservative but reasonable number for what one overages would go, right?
I mean, my guess is that at this point, we're projected to go over in EMS, assuming we follow the same trend by about 120. Assuming we can curb that, say maybe half or a little less, depending on how effective we are. So 50, so if you add 50 to whatever number we're thinking about for appropriated fund balance, I think that would be, as far, when calculating the impact,
Right.
as, I think that would be fair. So if we say 75, then say it's 125, gets us to 375 or something. Does that seem?
We're getting down to like 13, 12% somewhere there. Yeah. It's doable. I feel like it's a little low for me, having not a lot of context or history on it, but.
If you had to target a tax rate number that you will undoubtedly be forced to defend, either in public or in a coffee shop, what is that number?
Likely both.
Quite likely both. Maybe it's
Especially if you're.
I'm not afraid.
But they won't know.
I got this. I'm just saying, we should just, incremental is always better.
I understand, but the incremental question is, it is just a plucking a number out of the air. But when you have to justify a tax rate, is there a number that incrementally feels
I mean, the story
good
for me,
coming up from 710?
to work backwards into that feels like we're aiming to get to keeping it at 15, feeling like we're kind of aiming for the middle of between 10 and 20. Backing into that between what we'll have to cover for the budget and then what Ben's saying on top of that. I'm curious to know what that, I'd have to run numbers or someone else was able to figure out where that gets, where we go with that. Like, what would that be? 7.5, I'm not quite sure.
I mean, taking into account what we expect the overage might be in the EMS, just keep it around 15.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yeah.
I also find it's easier.
Be a little bit. You're looking at probably 7.25 to the rate.
Doesn't sound unreasonable to me to go 15 cents. I don't really have a lot of context in here, but
What's the percentage?
That would be a 2.2% increase to the rate, a 4% increase to the levy. 15 cents is 15 cents is $30 a year on a $200,000 house. The median
$30 a year, $200,000.
just village. median property value in the village is like 187 something. So if it's 250, if your house is assessed at 250, you're looking at $45.
Considering looking historically, we've
There's
got,
something.
I think you said that we've got on the order of like 40 cents, then 15 cents, then down a couple, then up 20 cents.
The down a couple was an accident, by the way. We were targeting a flat that year, and then the assessment numbers changed between April and June when the final numbers came in, because that was a reassessment cycle for the village. So if you remember your assessment bid, right, assessment went up in June of 17. Everybody loved that. We thought Tammy called me a panic. I think we made a mistake, but it was actually,
I remember
I wanted to throw up.
it was actually assessment department. We had,
Screw up water bills, don't ever screw up tax bills.
they had told us that the village-wide assessment was 126 million, and it came in at 130 and change. They didn't tell us.
Here's one.
Flashback.
She's sweating just thinking about this, good thing.
Well,
No,
this
not
is,
at home here.
So if assessment hadn't done that to us, or if we'd known about it and readjusted, we were looking at $7. We wanted to keep it about the same. So I would call that flat.
So then flat and then 10 cents. I mean, 15 feels like in the neighborhood of what we've been seeing and doing. I mean, granted, I'm sure we'd all love to keep it as flat as we can. But knowing that we've got EMS to contend with, I don't know. It seems like a story I could explain in a coffee shop. I mean,
especially having more clarity about the mandate piece, I think it helps tell that story. It's part of the defense, if you will.
I think that there's also, I think we've added Jared, we've added 2 police, we've added Morgan. I mean, we have managed to do all of that within that increase. I think it is.
And
We want to talk about payroll, yes, it's payroll, but it isn't to the existing employees, we've increased the number of people we're paying.
For $30 a year on $200,000. Yeah, I can make the
So,
argument.
okay, so how much in right town taxes? In comparison, I mean, what has it been like?
I had that.
Town and county together is around 8. I think town is 2 of it.
Town's pretty low. Town's 1.2, county's 6.4. And then we're,
Now the town's,
on top.
the town's tax base, total town tax base is about 500 million. So $500 million in tax base versus 130 million. Makes a difference.
So if we were to separate the question of appropriated fund balance from all of these other questions, say we're targeting 15%. Say that I am,
The 15% that we're targeting is the unencumbered balance.
right, that's what I'm saying, so,
That it stays at 15%.
and say EMS, like I'm saying, which I don't know how reasonable that is, but hopefully that's somewhat reasonable, is 50%. What's 15? Sorry, I'm talking out loud, and I shouldn't be, but,
Carry on.
I'm just saying, if we take the rate calculation out of what we're thinking, what's the ideal amount to leave in appropriated? Like what should we appropriate from fund balance? If we're not considering the rate, what's
Sorry, what was the current?
It's 497,000.
And so we said if we took out 75 or so, we'd be around 15%. Rough numbers. Is that
That would be, that's,
So we're looking at 422-ish. But also when we include what you have for overages.
what about our plan to shake down the bank?
That's in there. That's the 10K. interest.
Oh,
Yeah, taking them down for a big $10,000.
It's in there in big way.
It's actually not a shakedown number, we've been offered.
Maybe another way of putting that is like we're aiming to use 75,000 of that fund balance, of which part of which is the EMS and the rest would be going towards the balance of the budget.
Too many numbers.
Pause for everybody to be.
I'm conflicted because for me, if we take out 50,000, which is just what I project will come out of it anyway, we're left with 16%. And then on the other hand, so that's zero fund balance and a 9% increase in our rate. Or if we use, or on the other hand, we could keep the rate, or keep the levy flat. Or no, rather, keep the rate flat, levy goes up by 2% or whatever the assessment is. And we're still, I don't know how to evaluate.
I think
Between those, or on the spectrum between those, what you do,
yeah,
and why you do.
I feel like, I don't know, the way I was coming at it was, what do we want to target that fund balance at? If you feel like it's 15%, and we have a guess at what EMS is gonna be, then we know how much left over we can pay towards the budget, and then we make up the rest with an increase in the tax rate.
But you also have 2 police officers and benefits. And a full-time.
Right, and
And
that,
for
and that's,
benefits that are not budgeted for this year. So that fund balance, I think is going to, I would think it would be decreased substantially come our audit at the end of 19. So if you're spending the money now, you know,
right, so I'm not following one week. So we've got our fund balance, what we think it is right now, but you're saying there's things in there that will impact that, we haven't quite accounted.
well, that fund balance is as of a year ago, you know, in May. So I'm just saying, now you have an 18,
At the end
19.
of May last year, we had $497,000, so it wasn't accommodated in our budgeting process
Right,
on the good.
got it. So then the question is, where are we gonna end up at the end of this year on the budget?
Right. And right now,
Are we in a sense of that right now?
right, so we brought up the fact that we have a lot of expenses that are occurring
Okay.
between now and the end that had no budget. So outside of just the fire budget, that there's there's the police, the police officers and stuff that are gonna eat away at that unencumbered balance before we get to the end of the year.
Not significantly, because we looked at what it would do to the end of the year, we're looking at 20 to 30 out of police.
That's
Which
what
is-
I,
which
yeah,
is not
that's what I
nothing, but it's
thought
not a big
too.
number.
I thought that we had accommodated when we
Because of
hired.
because of when we hired. A lot of Chief Joe's stuff is kicking in June, depending on what New York State lets us do. EMS is the worry, you know, I think the 120 number hopefully will come way under that. But, you know, way under could still be 60, 65, I mean, it's still a big number.
Yeah, I think with all that included, we need to do something more than just flat. It seems like that would be kind of irresponsibly low on the balance.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily argue for flat, although it sounds nice. The question is really just how much. 10, 15. Last cycle was 20, so there's a benchmark. 2 cycles prior was 23. Cycle prior to that was almost 40.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I mean, the $30 per 200K doesn't sound awful.
Right, not for local services, you're actually.
The way, I mean,
And I agree with you, except that you can do that year after year after year, and people just, they're on a fixed income. I mean, that's the one thing, and as this community ages, it's gonna become more and more apparent.
Which takes us back to the first question. Assessments don't go up enough. Then we
And
have
if we don't grow,
to start to decide what services we want to cover.
and I think I just want to put that out there, that has to be the message that goes with it. Without growth, there is nothing but growth in the tax rate. You're not, nothing gets cheaper. People don't work for less.
Have we ever done like a letter accompanying the budget? I know you've often given kind of a broad overview speech around it, which has been, I think, very helpful, but I wonder if something written to kind of capture some of this might be useful.
Okay, going back to the question, I
Going
agree
back,
that the 15 cents is not, the $30 on 200,000 is not a problem.
The answer is no, there's never been a letter.
It's a great idea though.
Okay, if we like 15 cents, then that's 725. That uses 67,500 of fund balance, brings fund balance down to about 16%. See what happens at actual year end.
That gives you some room in case things really go south.
What do we have in, what do we pay for out of village for contractual?
The state of the village, if you guys need anything, books.
You guys going to training? You want to go to fall? Like come fall training?
I'm interested in training. I have not wrapped my head around which ones would be valuable or how to kind of approach that. If anyone has ideas, please,
That comes
happy
good.
to chat.
Comptroller does 3 trainings.
What does?
Comptroller. I had a great time.
Oh, third, if you're
Yeah,
not,
I mean,
if you're not a math person, the comptroller
Oh, wow.
classes are killer.
I'm all right on that.
Yeah.
There's a beginner, there's
No,
a beginner
budgeting.
accounting one.
Think about it.
Budgeting, comptroller budgeting, really.
Yeah.
That's
Just
what
like
we're
everything you
saying.
like about math,
Miranda, can you send me the
like
uncomfortable
push to the
balance
side.
email?
If you want the accounting one, there's one coming out
I'm
in
going
May, I
large,
think. In Camillus, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't have it.
So there's a monthly through comptroller or?
I'm always interested in trainings.
It's 2.5
I'll
days.
have to
See what you got.
2.5
Some good webinars.
That's all that ever came from them. I like it.
The last thing in general, I suppose, I don't want to belabor it. But there was a zeroed out line last year, which I haven't decided whether to zero out or not.
I will tell you, you're not zeroed out.
Which one?
There's,
What's the point where we tell her we're gonna take some money? For all the good things that you do?
So my position on this is that it is advantageous to pay someone. Because if in fact Gordon leaves the role, the only people who will even apply for the role are those that can do it for free. I don't know.
John Levine never took a salary.
Didn't
No, Marty came on, I think the salary at that point was $300 a month, and within 2 years, we were up after over $800 a month for the mayor position.
I agree. I think you should be paid. I think the office itself should be paid, taking you out of the equation, right? If you're not you,
And it shouldn't be about me.
then the mayor should be paid. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to not pay you personally,
Lots of people.
but I believe that the mayor should be paid.
I think it's
No, I agree.
advantageous for the entire group, to the entire community.
I agree.
If you want to make an anonymous shareable donation, that's up to you.
To the village.
After you pay taxes.
You can do that online.
Yeah.
I did go back, out of curiosity, I did go back and found the earliest records we have of the board paying themselves was from 1977. Was it 77 or something? 77. It was 77. Not that much.
I would have loved this paycheck in 1974.
I've not been here that long. Just feels like.
I don't know that the board didn't get paid before that, but it was the earliest record we have.
When I came, I think the board pay at that point was $195.15 for the trustees. The deputy mayor did not have a different salary rate. And again, the mayor was $330.84 a month. And then we did a big jump.
1977, it was $1,200 a year for the mayor and $600 a year for trustees. If you adjust for inflation,
You did
I
that.
did that.
You're such a weirdo.
If you adjust for inflation and then take the village's budget and what departments we had in 1977, there was no ambulance department, there was no EMS. And there was one paid police officer, his name was Tom Ferretti. And you adjust for the growth of the departments, then you get to a mayor's salary of like 17.5, something like that. Not that I'm advocating for that, but I mean, there is, like I said, taking me out of the equation, there is justification for it, but
What we're talking about here, again, different, is the increments. Because if you don't do it, and then you try to do it, it skews everything.
No, I mean, I would strongly suggest that we do that. By which I mean that the mayor's paid position. I mean, for the same reason that you're looking at, revisiting EMS wages, right? I mean, it's the same principle. You have to have, I mean, it's almost not the same principle, because we're never gonna get to a position where we have competitive wage for these tasks, but, you want to be something. There's gotta be a carrot.
Seriously.
Deb, water and sewer, anything in particular you want to talk about? Everything looks fairly.
Look at the legal lines, because I decreased them substantially, I think. I think that's the only thing.
The only question I had on water was, we still have $109,000 in the water tank debt service reserve. Are we using any of that?
Debbie and I had talked about that, and isn't it really better to use that fund balance and save that debt?
Do we want to use that for water tank repairs if and when kind of thing, or do we want to use that on?
I was gonna use it on the debt service this time until I found out I had so much unencumbered balance. I mean, at one point I thought I was not gonna have, thought I was gonna end up having to raise rates. And the fact that I can do that,
Like, didn't you double in this quarter?
I didn't want.
So, right, so you're not gonna need to do that.
Right, so what I need to come even is $46,591. Whether that comes from the fund balance or comes from the debt service account, I don't care,
Why do you need to do that?
just to get my budget to balance.
But metered sales, last year's metered sales number was,
673, 699.
right, so why can't we keep the metered sales number the same?
I don't know,
It's wrong.
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
Oh, I'm on water, sorry, I'm sorry, I was in sewer.
All right, get over here.
Okay, well,
Isn't that
Yes.
Okay, so what I did was I took our rate. I took our rate, did all this stuff. And this is what I came up with. Actually, I came up with 606,000, and so I left it at 625. I could put the 673, 699 in there, but I don't believe it's a real number.
I do.
I think you're gonna be real close.
It was 660 when I did the addition earlier for you. On the billings, from what we billed, was 660. Well, that was the projected, because of course we haven't included May.
I think you're gonna be close. Because the only reason you might be shy is because our last water rate increase was actually was water bill in Q2 of 18.
Yes.
Right.
So there was a little bit of
So you
catch.
think that I should change the net revenue to 690?
673, 699, keep the same number as last year. Is that what it was last year?
Nine.
See, this is what throws everything off.
I know, and I tried to explain that to Deb, but that's what they expected.
That's a phantom number.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's what we've received,
The
and I can get rid of it.
expended, yeah, I know that.
Okay, I'll get
You
rid of it.
basically have to double that
80,
number.
49, 680.
But this number includes a quarter to lower rate.
Right, so
It's
the
gonna be
number's not
close, I
gonna be
mean, it's
right.
gonna be within.
So we don't need this number.
What I was trying to do is get everything really
6,
close, which I hadn't been doing. So if I take the unencumbered balance out
If you,
and put that number back in, I am about $1,700 off.
No, yeah,
see, I think if you just keep the metered sales number the same,
Right?
then any underage is going to be automatically eaten up by unencumbered balance. And then it's a budget mod at the end of the year, because it's gonna be close. And then next year in budgeting, if the expenses are up enough, then we might have to decide, are we gonna use the water tank or unencumbered?
so you wanna drop the unmetered sales by $778 to make
Just leave
it,
it, just leave it exactly the same.
but then it's not balanced.
Yeah, and you just.
Revenue doesn't equal expenses.
$681.
Revenue is above expenses?
Yes.
Is that a problem?
6.
Yeah, well, yes, because we
As much as the balance initially, then use.
just take it out of it.
Then just take it
No.
Because you can't change the
$1,000.
meter sales number, that's what calculates what we charge on the
Okay.
rates.
Okay, so,
Change it, take it out of interest and penalties. It's a phantom number anyway.
yeah, kind of. Okay.
$758. That's what I've got for the difference.
Yeah, I would balance it out of interest and penalties.
Meters, you know.
No, leave meter sales alone, because that's how we back into the water rate.
Okay, we're
Okay.
balanced.
Balance it where?
We're just gonna take,
Interest and penalties,
Okay.
just balance it in that number, because you're gonna budget mod at the end of the year anyway.
okay,
So water rates are gonna stay the same, again, for a second straight year. Water rates will stay the same, as they have for the past year. Sewer. That's where you need 44,000 of fund balance.
That's where I was.
yes,
Yeah,
46,000.
46,591. Again, I cut a lot legal. Did leave some in there for MRP because I want, as we're doing the I&I stuff, I may need them. I don't think I left much in there. I can't find the line right now.
Do you want to use any of the sewer rate stabilization reserve, which has almost 55,000?
No. I don't think we're there. I don't want to use that unless we have to use that. And I mean, that'll be up to whoever takes this job and tries to balance it next.
What are do you know what the fund balances are on those? Are those also fairly
Yeah,
close to?
yeah.
Did I do that pretty good? Or did I take it back?
No, you didn't.
The water fund is about 215,000, and the sewer is about 162,000.
Those are reserve balances in the Dropbox.
Yes.
Yeah. No, he said.
Oh, that was-
but we're-
He wanted fund
Yeah,
balance.
fund balance.
There's unencumbered balance in water and sewer as well.
Pretty sure you didn't, I'll look, I don't think you gave it to me. Okay. I'll just,
Put the unencumbered balances in just the document somewhere.
Okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
yeah, no, I don't have it.
Okay.
I saw you showed it to me, I know we had it. It was an email.
Well, I wrote it down, I mean,
It was probably over here. So water fund unencumbered balance, this is as of May 31 of 18, was 215,123. Sewer was 162,539. Which is, now that I think about it, a little high. So that's, yeah, so we should be spending some of that down. At least in sewer. So it's too big a percentage of the budget.
mhm. If you take the 46,000 out, how much is it?
46 gives us 116.
That's only about 22,
25.
25.
Okay,
Do you want me to put more in reserves? To take down the unencumbered? I'd be willing to put it in the sewer rate stabilization. Actually, I could put it in the collection system repair.
I mean, I think that's the likely scenario.
let's
If
put,
we
let's put,
televise all of this and it's all cracked and all.
let's put 75,000 in collection system. Rate stabilization is kind of redundant if we have a big fund balance.
Right. But I don't want, and there's, I can't remember how much in this, there's not much in there.
If we put 75,000 in collection system, if we put 10 in rate stabilization, what do we need to use for fund balance up top?
468, 171, is that what it was?
So we have a replacement schedule for roads, for reworking road.
714.
Do we have like a schedule for water sewer for
That's, I put that collection reserve in there for exactly that reason. Because we had nothing, no money savings, nothing to fix pipes when we needed them, and I found out that, I don't remember what the cost was, outrageous.
Yeah.
It was like $180,000 for 150 feet. It was like,
Right.
well, we're gonna put as much as we can in here.
Mhm.
So now, I, up until last year when we started having to pay the $43,000 for the park, and other than that,
So Deb,
yeah,
if we put 75 in the collection system reserve,
right,
10 in rate stabilization,
okay,
that takes the unencumbered balance down to 20%.
works for me.
And keeps sewer rates unchanged for the second year in a row.
So the whole point being, it was gonna be so substantial.
We have to
And that we didn't start right away. We're not gonna have enough to do the investigation.
71,500. in unappropriated funds. We're going to change sewer rate stabilization.
Okay, so we good on water and sewer?
Collections. Are we going back to general?
Do we even know, like, when
Seven
things should
forty.
be replaced? Like,
We did?
like everything's probably shoeless compared to.
Did you say anything to? No. People who don't, the municipalities do it.
It's just a matter of, kind of, you know, whatever it is.
Depends on what they play. A lot of these are clay,
And it's,
and they
7.8.
disintegrate. It's not working until
Right.
shit shows up.
All right, let's
So I guess the televising will give us a sense, at least for the places that we do.
The two more right ahead and tell them it's the I&I piece, but it really.
Do I keep that meeting for
We got time.
March?
No, I don't think we need the second March meeting for budget, do we? Pretty comfortable with
Yeah, I think I am.
where we are.
I would
gotta
say
be out to
I,
meetings. Nice.
Hey, anything else on budget? Anything else on budget going once? Then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss zoning officer applications we've received as well as EMS personnel.
so, there you go. Second,
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Documents open.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed, abstaining, we're only 40 minutes behind.